Hi, everybody. How you doing out there?
We are
Well,
all we're all doing well, but you talked about in the green room one of those funny things about victimhood.
you know, I had a client who was talking about a woman taking all this money from him. And he spent, I don't know, about over $100,000 on her. So he said, well, she took all this money. I said, whoa, 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 whoa. Nobody took your money. You gave her that money. I said, it was a new client. And I said, between us, we don't talk victim language. Nobody took your money without your permission. You gave her this money. And now you're turning it around like, oh, she did this to me. No, you had 100% consent in that. In this victimized world, where everybody you talk to seems to play the victim one way or another. Oh, yeah, look what happened to me. All right, first of all, I want to tell you all that's the biggest turnoff to anybody listening to you. I'm not talking male, female anymore. I'm talking when you are in any kind of conversation, even if you're going for a job and you're talking to the interviewer and you're saying, well, this old company did this to me and then that to me, and you sound so weak, like you can't do anything. What about confronting the person who you thought had done you dirty? I have a different kind of formula for the word confront. To me, you don't have a confrontation screaming, yelling. To me, I write CON and I capitalize FRONT, confront, meaning you are up front with your emotions. So you're saying with this kind of sentence construction, when I felt so and so, and that's it. And then just be quiet. That sentence setup allows the other person then to explain or talk or anything. Because when you said this, I felt hurt because I felt like you weren't hearing me or whatever. Then allow the other person to explain. That's the other person's job. But if you constantly say to the other person, when you this, I felt that, and you should never do that, and go on and on like that. Excuse me. What you're doing is like Santa Claus's bag. You are gunny sacking at the your big bag of complaints and grievances, and you're saving them for this one moment when you can say to somebody, "This is what you did." That's as good as using you language. You did this, you did this, you did that. Nobody can respond to that. So if you play the victim, you probably are using you language. You are acting nasty. You are acting immature. You are behaving like, and all these pejorative words. But that doesn't leave the other person any place to go. So once you push somebody against the wall and say, you did this, they're against the wall. And what are they supposed to do? Well, you did that. So now you have a battle of the you language, and that will not never solve any problems. When I'm working with somebody, we do not use victim language. We never use victim language because when I'm working with somebody, they are coming to me to get something much more than they've gotten in their therapy. Usually they have had therapy and it hasn't worked so well. They're getting language, they're getting behavior, they're getting how to talk to somebody so that they can respond And then you can respond and you can have a good kind of conversation. This is all based on Sun Tzu's The Art of War. And that means you communicate rather than go to chaos. You communicate and you confront, but not in the nasty, screaming, yelling way. Again, confront means being upfront with your feelings. So, at the point that you wrote me a letter and say, oh, we have to break up, on what basis is that? How I felt when I received the letter was so da, 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 so on and so forth. And let the other person hear that. He may not say, I'm sorry, I'm going to come back. We're going to get together again. You may not get what you are looking to get, but you're getting so much more. You're getting your feelings out into the open. You're getting them into the mix between the other person and you. And you can have a mature conversation. Now, you may say, well, who cares? We're already broken up. What do we need a mature conversation for? Because that's not going to be the last conversation you ever have in your life. And learning these skills and learning them now is essential because you may have to confront a boss and you may find that your money, your salary, your future is dependent on how your boss interprets what you are saying. And if you are saying it in a mature and polite way and gives the other person an opportunity to respond rather than react, and there's a big difference. React is, "Rrr." Respond is, oh, I hear what you're saying. Let me clarify that for you. Or I don't think you interpreted that the way you think I interpreted, or so on and so forth. But it gives you the starting point to have a conversation. Now, I have used this technique and many others like this on Wall Street with people who are making a lot of money. And they couldn't believe how simple it was once they got it under their belt. And they couldn't believe how much easier their interpersonal relations were and how much easier it was to achieve that bottom line. And that's what you're looking for ultimately, to achieve the bottom line. If the bottom line is in finance, money, cash, that's one thing. But the bottom line could be what happens next in our relationship. Or it could be all of those things. So I am begging you all, get off this victim language. He or she didn't do anything to you. He or she just did their own thing and it affected you. And your communication says, when you did that, I felt such and such a way. If you want to go on, because at that point you have the other person's attention, guaranteed. If you want to go on, well, when I felt that way, as a result of that, I didn't want to do this and I didn't want to do that other report and blah, 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 blah. So it shows the person how your feelings also marred the next activity you were supposed to be doing. But you are truly communicating. And that's what we're talking about when we're talking communication. I am so fed up with listening to poor me language. I can't do, what was I supposed to do? I can't do anything about it. What is it? Go out, get your goal, but make sure that your you-ness is being expressed in a way that it can be heard. And that's my message for you all today.
All
How's
right,
that,
good.
Neil?
So I like it, and I think use these techniques work really well. But when you're in a heated conversation, it's best to walk away and wait till later to have that confront. Would you agree?
When you're in a heated conversation, you don't want to say something that you're going to be sorry for later on. And you know you can't take back what you already let out of your mouth. So before you open your mouth, open mouth, insert foot, before you do that, and it is unredeemable after that, before you do that and get into trouble, instead of doing that, Why don't you simply walk away, cool down, drive around, get a drink of water, anything, and then come back with a different mindset to be able to deal with the issue at hand. Look, we are human beings. There are going to be issues that we don't agree on, which is fine. And that's perfect. Because if not for the disagreements, we would never get to the next step. But understand, you aren't looking for a battle. And that's the confrontation that you think the word means, but I spell it differently for a reason.
All right.
Be upfront with your feelings. If you're not, the other person's going to know, not going to know what they are anyway. And then you're going to be so upset. Well, you should have known. Here's the you language. I've heard that. Here I am trying to make sense out of two people arguing. Each one is making a couple of $1 million. I mean, this happens in offices where I am called in, and they're just not getting along, and they're at each other's throats, and I just let them air their differences on the table. When they are finished, I have them repeat what they thought the other person had said. It's a technique I've used for years and years and years. John, what did you hear Tom say? Tom, what did you hear John say? Sometimes, and many times, they didn't even hear the right thing. And notice how we, with our own selective perception, depending upon whether we got enough sleep last night, or if we had a good meal, or if we're hungry, or if we're thirsty, or anything else that might mar our interpersonal communication. But if you are at rest and at peace, and you go in there being open, that's another word, very important, being open to hearing another interpretation, then you're on a winning path. But if you're there to fight, and I know people only there to fight, and then you wonder, what am I doing here? I'm supposed to be the mediator. What the heck did they call me in for?
All right. Go to drgilda.com. Appreciate it, Dr. Gilda, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you,
That was the
Neil.
special. You're welcome. That was a special simulcast of the Neil Haley Show.